Welcome to the It's Time podcast with your host, Professor Dale Feinauer, from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.
Welcome to another podcast from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs. Once again, we're trying to put a little more fuel on your leadership fire. Very excited. Today we have with us Lisa Piikkila, who is the owner and creative director at Coalesce Marketing and Design. I'm also excited by the fact that Lisa is one of our executive MBA alumni, so we do go back a little bit. We have traveled internationally a little bit, all of those good things.
What goes abroad stays abroad, right?
There you go. What happens there stays there. That was a good trip. Why don't you start with telling me about your organization and how is it that you ended up owning a company?
Okay. Well, Coalesce Marketing and Design we're on our 18th year. We're a full-service marketing and design agency. We've positioned ourselves as a mixed marketing solutions provider to our clients. So we do both traditional marketing and digital marketing, as well as social and video and everything else that goes into the aspects of marketing for different companies. We look at the opportunities or challenges that our customers bring to us and look at all of the avenues and channels there are to get the word out to their target audiences or whatever the opportunity or solution is, and customize the path forward based on what the challenge is that they've set forth. So we mix it all up. We don't just do one thing or the other. We do like a lot of different things on any given day.
And it sounds to me like you have fun doing it.
We have a lot of fun. No single day is ever the same from the day before. So it's always different. You're wearing many hats on any given day. So it keeps it interesting. Cool.
Mm-hmm. So how did it happen that you ended up owning a company? What was the evolution? Most folks don't do that. How'd that happen?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family that my parents both had businesses. My dad had an auto shop and auto parts store. My mom had a fabric shop. My grandparents had milk bottling companies. So I grew up in that environment my entire life. So I always felt like I would end up in that space at some point. My background is in design. So I did freelance work all through college, came out of college, worked at agencies. Then I went to the corporate side. And having been at both the agency side and the corporate side, I had an opportunity to start Coalesce and go on the ownership aspect of it as well. And it's kind of where it started. So our first day open, we had, a global company knock on our door to start work, and we've been off to the races ever since.
Nice. And some of the comfort level with that is it was sort of in the blood. It was in the family.
It is, yes, for sure. You grew up with it. You see, it's not for the faint of heart. You know you're going to be working a lot of hours. It's going to take nights and weekends or whatever it takes. But having grown up with that, I didn't know any different. So you just do what you have to do.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So being a owner of a family business, many folks view, if I could be an owner of a business, that'd be great. I could do whatever I want to do. I'd be in charge. I can do whatever I want. What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about maybe starting a business?
I just did have this conversation not too long ago with a good friend of mine. And at the time, if you kind of go through peaks and valleys of this is the most wonderful thing that you could ever choose in your life to, boy, this is not the greatest path I took, and I'm going to go work for corporate because there seems like there'd be so many more benefits and so many more less stresses in having someone else worry about the things you have to worry about as a business owner. So that whole conversation was like, really, where do you want to be? Do you want to be kind of taking the reins and leading the charge moving forward, that when you own your own business, you have the freedom to do that you don't necessarily have when you're working for someone else. So keeping that in mind. But even when you own your own business, your customers are still driving the ship most of the time. So you have your freedom, but then you don't.
Because if the customer needs X, you stay late to get X done.
Exactly what happens, yes.
Cool. Leadership. You're clearly in a leadership role. You're leading an organization. Talk to me about the evolution of you. How did you become a leader? What are the things in your life that have been instrumental in who you are as a leader today?
I've been fortunate to work when I was on the corporate side, but then also as clients to work with some leaders that are just exceptional and just treated everybody that they worked with such respect. And that was a good gauge to start with, I think, just to have them ask your opinion and respect your opinion and take your advice or criticism or whatever that was to heart. That means a lot. So I think that premise was a good foundation to build upon. Then going into, how I started, I was guilty of thinking as a leader, I have to know how to do everything, and then I can help train people or lead them through the process of it along the way. The reality is, and in what we do, it changes so rapidly on any given day. You can't be the expert in everything. So you have to learn that, you hire people smarter than yourself. You have to really live that, and you have to trust that. And getting past that for myself was a big thing. But I think once you learn that and you can trust the people that you're working with to do what they're good at, it helps them love their job more, and it helps them become more vested in your company and love what they do. And it just tells a better story in the end. So it takes a lot of pressure off me. It gives more pride to them in what they do. But that was the biggest thing that I learned, is you just have to let them shine. You have to let them do what they're good at.
How do you do that? How do you lead people who know more about a particular thing than you do? You can't tell them exactly what they need to do. How do you lead somebody who knows more about something? We'll leave the question whether they're smarter than you aside, but who knows more about a specific thing than you do?
Well, so any project, if you will, that we are working on has a goal in mind. So having the goal as the end point, you have all of these things that you can execute to get to the goal in common. So it's asking those questions to make sure that goal is always in mind. So whatever they're working on, whether in our case, maybe it's PR, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a website, whatever that might be. When we're looking at what that goal is, do all of these things take care and answer the questions, lead the customer to what they need to know to make a final decision and act upon it. So the goal is where I'm coming from all the time. I ask a lot of questions. I might get annoying, but I do ask a lot of questions.
So you're focused, what I'm hearing is on the goal. What are we doing to make sure we're keeping the goal in mind? How are we getting to that goal as a detail that other people focus on more than you? You're making sure you focus on the goal and treating your people with dignity and respect, and then good things happen.
That's the recipe that you hope was the success. So let's hope.
Well, you've been in business long enough and successful long enough. It feels like a recipe that's working for you.
Yeah, so far I think it's good. I think you just want to make sure that all those pieces align in the end too. So you have these people, and in our agency, everyone kind of has a little area of expertise that they do. But for any given client, we're all working on all clients all the time. So you have to be able to rely on them to do what they're best at, knowing that we all have that common goal in the end.
Strikes me that there's a balance there that you're striking in these two things, where one of the things you want to do is focus on the goal and make sure that you're meeting the needs of the customer. You're also saying that you need to treat folks with dignity, respect, empower them, turn them loose. Strikes me that those two at times could be in conflict. How do you balance those two? How do you know whether this is a time to turn them loose or to focus more on the goals? Or
well, deadlines drive that goal
more
often than not. I mean, deadlines in our world they become shorter and shorter and shorter all the time. So if it's a tight deadline, you don't have the opportunity to necessarily make sure that everybody's taken care of as they should be. It's not, they always should be taken care of, but when your deadline's pretty tight, you don't have the time to step back and say, are you all right? Or is this okay? You don't have the time for that. You just have to get this done. After the fact, you can go back and have kind of a recap and make sure, well, what worked, what didn't work. You can talk about that after the fact. But if that deadline's tight, sometimes there isn't that opportunity. But for our organization, and I've been told I tend to lead with my heart more than my head, but it's just who I am. So it's not going to change. I hope that's why people stay.
Well, it's interesting that you described it as the deadlines drive. So we got to get the goal done. Push. and you might push the troops, if you will, the folks a little hard to make it happen. But then afterwards, so now that we've hit the goal, now that we've got this done, then you go back. Talk to me about that. What happens after? You talked about the review after. How do you use that to grow the folks?
Well, it's something I'd like to do more moving forward. I don't know that we've been the best at having those recap meetings all the time. I know that we all learn whatever that deadline is. If something worked or didn't work, we've learned from it and we'll use that for future projects. Whether we talk about it all of the time isn't necessarily the case, but that's something, a goal for myself for this year is to do more of those recap meetings to try to just keep, becoming more efficient and better at what we do, but paying attention again to the people and what they're doing so that, did you like this? Didn't you like this? What do you think we could have done better? Because their input is so valuable. You have to make sure you're asking those questions all the time.
And if you don't have time to ask them under the deadline, you ask them then after. As opposed to just jumping into the next thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think just a recap, I think that's always a good thing. I just want people to know that they're valued. And I don't know that you can do that enough. I think people appreciate that, right?
Yeah, I think so. What was your first leadership role in life, and what did you learn from it?
I guess, you'd have to go back to babysitting. You had to lead the little troops all around.
All right, talk about it. What?
Yeah.
So you were a babysitter.
Oh, sure. That's how, at 50 cents an hour, if that takes me back to how long ago that was. Highway robbery.
We will not do the math on when was the babysitting rate 50 cents an hour and try and date you on this.
Yeah, no.
But we'll identify it as being a few years ago.
There you go.
But what did you learn from being a babysitter?
Well, so they're not your siblings. They're not your children. These are kind of strangers that you're taking care of. You have to go in, assess the situation, see who's maybe happy and who's not happy. Try to make sure that everybody is happy at some stage. You can't make all the people happy all the time, right? But do things with them, arrange things, whatever, to try to get them all on the same page so you're corralling them. Those kinds of things.
Yep.
Which is hurting cats sometimes, but yeah, I guess that would probably be the earliest point of it. I'm not alone in the babysitting world, but that would point to that, I think.
Okay. So that was your first, in retrospect, leadership kind of role.
Yeah, I think so. I think, when you talk about leadership, and I've been thinking about this since you emailed, that I've always, for so many years, didn't, when I thought about leadership, didn't necessarily think of myself in that aspect because we have a small business. We're tiny in comparison to the people that we work with that have, offices all over the world in some cases for our clients. So how can I even say that, I'm a leader, I do that? But the truth is, it doesn't matter the size of the corporation. The basic principles of leadership or leading with care or whatever that might be are still the same no matter the size of the company.
Basic principles of leadership. You've talked about caring. You've talked about making deadlines. Other principles that you've identified, experienced?
Well, I think it's leading by example. I believe wholeheartedly in, being the one I have my feet on the ground. I'm there in the office working a lot of hours. I'm out meeting with people. I'm doing the networking things that sometimes aren't necessarily my most comfortable place to be. But you have to do those things that take you kind of outside of your comfort zone to try to make your organization better.
Okay. How do you balance the relationships in that at some aspect, what I hear you saying is you want to build relationships with these people. You want them to understand that you respect them. You want their input. You're engaging. You care about them as people, but you're also the boss. How do you draw the line between being a friend and being the boss? Maybe back as a babysitter, how did you draw the line between being a friend and being in charge?
I've struggled with that for a while. I thought there had to be a line that you just couldn't cross. But for myself, I really enjoy the people that I work with, and I never say I'm their boss. I work with the people that work at Coalesce. I'm not their boss. I make that very clear.
You don't think of yourself as these people are working for me.
I don't. I don't think of it that way. I think we are a team and we all work together. I sometimes have to make the difficult decisions that they don't have to make, but it's just the role that I'm in. So for myself, drawing that line is pretty fuzzy, which good or bad, I can be criticized all you want. I just don't draw the line. I think it's, we're a pretty tight group. We all like each other. We enjoy each other's company. And as we look to hire and grow our organization, our biggest mistake that we've made in the past is not hiring people that fit that culture. So we know now that when we're leading this charge moving forward, the people that we're interviewing and looking for have to fit into this culture that we've worked hard to build.
Okay. And I'm going to come back to that hiring for culture. But what I think I was hearing was that you struggled with this question of relationship and were looking for a firm line. But in your experience, there isn't a firm line between, okay, yes, you can have a drink with them, but you can't have 2 drinks with them, or you can socialize this way, but not that way.
It did. When we first started, I felt like I was more like that. Like I shouldn't, if we have a Christmas party, I shouldn't stay too long. I should be the first one that leaves. Or if we have a happy hour, I'll have a drink and I'll leave, those kinds of things. But maybe it's a little FOMO, I'm not sure. But, I'd see the people that I'm working with then go out and still have a good time or get together and do other things. And I wasn't part of it. And you can't help but feel a little left out, right?
Right.
So that's where I think, the culture that we have is just, we just enjoy each other. We want to have more people that enjoy the same things we do, and we'll grow from there.
And I understand. I mean, I remember back to the EMBA days, the cohort you were in, which was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed the international trip. And I don't know if you would say that I was the boss and in charge.
Didn't feel, well, I think that's the thing. Everybody knew you were, but it didn't feel like you were like holding that over anybody's head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult, it's an interesting
it is.
balance.
Yeah.
Any advice for a young person who is first being in that role of being a leader and is struggling with I want to build relationship, but I don't want to be too informal. And sadly, in our society, for women, this is probably tougher than for men in some ways. What advice would you give somebody?
Yeah, I would agree with you. It is a little tougher. I think just being respectful. I mean, anybody that you meet, being respectful of them, of their, their experience and their opinion, I think is important. And always be thoughtful. So I don't think you can take the time to ask if it's a good time to speak with them, or to ask if there's an issue or something that is maybe in their personal life. You don't have to know their personal life, but there are things that come up for people that make it difficult for them to do their job.
Right.
So being understanding of those situations will help people, I feel, be more comfortable around you. I think on top of that also is to show that for yourself, I mean, you can be vulnerable. You can make mistakes and you can ask for opinions. You don't have to be the authority. You don't have to be the one that never admits they're wrong. I mean, I think all of those things are human, and the more human you are, the more you'll be respected as well.
So you would admit to your employees that you're wrong?
Oh, yeah.
And you are wrong from time to time?
Oh, yeah.
Shocked, I say.
No, unfortunately, probably more often than I care to admit.
And that's just part of who you are with your direct reports, that, yeah, I thought we ought to do X, and now I don't think that's the right answer, and we drop back and try again.
Yeah, it's just this game in marketing and design, especially design related. So, my background being on the design side, like you can push for design, and in the end, it may not be where it started, but you get there. So you can try things. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be right.
Okay. Interesting. You talked about hiring for culture.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. What role do you see culture in your recruitment process? How does that relate to the way you lead the organization?
So I think we learn from mistakes, and there's all these theories that hiring for culture is probably the best thing to do. And then secondly is the experience. And I really believe that, the culture for us is so important that from past, this is over 18 years, when you hire someone that just isn't the right fit, they don't feel like they belong. And you feel bad for them, and you can try to get them to feel like they belong, but it may not just be their thing. Not everybody's meant for everybody. So it's kind of like dating in the business
right.
world, right? So it'd be nice if you could kind of date a little bit before.
But sometimes after the first date, you decide no second date. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, this is.
So when you have that person that isn't a good cultural fit, it can lead to some animosity within the organization, or just, differences of opinion or execution or the process or whatever that might be. It just gets messy. And if you can find people that really jive with the people that you have already, it just has a natural flow.
And now a few words about some of the programs and services offered by the UW-Oshkosh College of Business.
Powerfully positioned, strategically designed, results-driven. That's what sets the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Master of Business Administration program apart in Northeast Wisconsin. Our MBA professional program offers flexible course options to meet the needs of working professionals seeking career advancement. Take the courses 100% online, in person during the evenings in Appleton or Oshkosh, or a combination of both, and earn your MBA in as little as 2 years. No GRE or GMAT required. It's time to achieve more with a graduate degree from UW-Oshkosh. Visit uwo.sh/MBA to learn more. That's uwo.sh/MBA. Visit today.
What do you look for to tell that somebody's going to fit in the culture of your organization? How do you know that?
That is a good question. So we just recently redid our core values. So after it was in our 17th year, it's like, let's take a look. I don't even remember what our original core values are.
Generally an indication that you ought to pay a little more attention to them.
So let's look at those and see where we are now and what do we think is the most valuable. So we went back and really refined those. And now those are the things that in any interview moving forward, what we will lead with. And if they don't line up with the values that we've determined are most important, then they just won't be a good fit.
So you lead with the values. Mm-hmm. You don't lead with what the organization does. You don't lead with what skill sets you need. You lead with, this is what we value in this organization.
I think in an interview. So first you screen for experience.
Sure.
And then you bring them in. But in an interview, yes, we will lead with the values and that will be the thing. So I don't know where it came from. That's a quote, if it's in a book or what, but it's the idea of you use your values to either attract people or retain or repel people.
Yes.
So if they repel people, then they weren't meant to be in your organization.
Wasn't be a good fit.
Yeah.
And sometimes in recruitment, we make mistakes. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? So now you've hired somebody that really isn't a good cultural fit.
Yeah.
And you're the boss. How do you deal with analyzing and making this isn't the right home for you decision?
Well, the ideal is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and they leave. So that's the easy part.
Okay.
I mean, if that happens, that's the easy part. But sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations, and they'll never be fun for me. I've had to do it just a couple of times, and it's uncomfortable. I'm not a conflict person. I don't like making other people unhappy. So it just is one of those things you just have to face and go through the motions. It doesn't mean you can still be kind in the process. Okay. They'll take it as being kind, but
be kind. But if you have to, you make the hard decision and help them find another home.
That'd be ideal. If you could help them find another home, that'd be even better.
Okay. When you've got people that are working for you, sometimes you want them to tell you if they think you're wrong. But employees tend to want to tell you you're right because you're the boss. Don't want to aggravate you. How do you balance that? How do you get employees to look you dead in the eye and say, Lisa, don't think so? Yeah,
it's tough. So I think you have to build that rapport and that trust. That takes time. So it's not something you can just come out of the gate and say, tell me what you think of me or what I did, or that's not going to happen. So you have to build that rapport and that trust up front or along the way. But I think, just always reassuring them. It's like if you see things that you would have done differently than myself or something I should have said or done that you think would have worked better. I appreciate that feedback as much as I think you would or they would in any given circumstance. So I think trying to just build that up front is important. In the past, I've asked, or, I try to ask opinions on if it's a new hire or whatever. I want their opinion, but I would hear what they think I want them to hear. And that doesn't help me. So, it's like if I want to think that, I would just talk to myself and I get that same answer. So I need their perspective. So I think just reassuring them, it's like your perspective is important to me, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for you to just agree, just to disagree, just to agree.
Okay. So you encourage that challenge, etc.
Yeah.
All right. And this question's a little scary because your answer could be no, but you went through the executive MBA program, and one of the things we talked about in there is leadership. Any particular takeaways from that program that have been useful to you in your leadership journey?
It's tempting to say no because you teed it up so nicely, but I won't. So I think in terms of leadership, the one thing that has stuck with me was the book that we read, The Leadership Pipeline.
Yep.
And the thing about that book that I always have in the back of my head is that as people stay with an organization over time, it's a natural progression to promote them to the next level. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily suited for that next position. So I know that before the MBA. So maybe if I would have known this, prior to doing that, with someone, I wouldn't have done it. But it is that thing. And it's kind of this cultural thing that people expect, right? And having done that, I saw someone kind of outgrow their position, offer up this new one, and it just wasn't a good fit. But it's hard to take it back. It's hard for them to move back. So that whole thing is just uncomfortable. But I think that was one of the things that you just, as a leader, you have to keep in mind. It's that, you want them to grow, but the next natural step on a org chart,
on the hierarchy,
that might not be the right step for them.
So what do you do with that person? I'm in box X, but the box up the hierarchy you're convinced is the wrong box for me. How do you keep me interested? How do you get me to grow? What do you do?
I think it's just that conversation with them. What do you enjoy doing the most? What do you want to do moving forward? Or are there things you want to learn that you want to become an expert at? Trying to grow their skill set in something that they're interested in, I think just means they'll be a longer term employee.
Okay. So growing them in some way other than the leadership side of their job.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be leadership. If they want to learn podcasting, go ahead and do it.
Well, I'm now an expert in podcasts.
Exactly.
No. You had mentioned this very quickly in passing, I think, but being a leader, being the leader, the owner of the company, in some ways can be lonely. You spend time with the folks and they're a group that you get to know well and you enjoy their company. But in the end result, you have to make some hard decisions sometimes. And how do you deal with do you agree that being the top dog can be lonely? And how do you deal with that?
I do agree with that. I think as much as our culture is very close, it still is. You can't get out of it. You just are that person, right? So it is lonely because there are different things that you have to think about that no one else does. So for myself, I think the best thing that I've done is join. I have 3 different peer groups that I'm in. Maybe 3 might be excessive, but I just kind of landed in all of them. So one is at an executive level. And in that group in particular is people that are a level of what our clients are typically.
Okay.
So understanding and relating to problems and issues that they have is helpful. Then the other 2, one is a women's business owners group. So from being a women business owner, it's kind of a good group to be able to go in and talk about concerns and issues and successes or failures with that organization. And then the other one is a mixed group of business owners as well. So we tee up topics, we plan out the year and present issues and things like that. So those have all been helpful because it's a way to go in and share opportunities or problems and get their perspective because they're thinking the way you're thinking. They're not thinking as an employee. They're thinking as a business owner or a leader or something. And their perspective has been really helpful in different instances.
So finding people outside of your organization that you can connect to
Yes.
has been helpful.
Yeah. And I was resistant to do that at first. I thought, I don't have time to do that. If I'm going to spend any time, I should be working more. But the truth is it's been invaluable, the time that I spent, that I never realized. I didn't think it would be as valuable as it has been.
Well, and I hear people talk about working in the business versus on the business. And it sounds like you're talking about those things have helped you work on the business and think of the business as an entity, not just the producing stuff for a particular client.
Yeah, they do. I don't claim that I'm good at working on the business versus in the business. I'm the most guilty of the opposite.
You like the working in more
really
than the on.
I really do like working in the business, but it has to happen. You have to be able to step back and work on the business to get it to grow. I think for us now, we just moved offices. We're in the coolest space downtown Appleton. We're so excited to be there. And it just feels fresh and different. And it's this whole opportunity to we looked at our values. It feels like we're reinventing ourselves a little bit. So working on the business has been something that just kind of evolved with our move. So it's been welcoming and it's been great.
How do you discipline yourself to do that? You want to do A, you enjoy A, but you know you need to do B. How do you get Lisa to do B when you want to do A?
And it's not just me, so that helps. So I brought other people in, so we all hold each other accountable. So there's a small group that is in this business strategy that we're working on, so that everybody in that group has a project or something they're assigned to that, and we're holding each other accountable for the deadlines or whatever needs to be done. So that helps. So it's not just me. I'm not doing it all by myself.
Okay. You got a lot going on in your life. It strikes me. You've got family. You've got a company that you own. For a while, you're going through the EMBA, and we were like a fire hydrant shooting stuff at you. What do you do to take care of you? How do you make sure that Lisa doesn't lose out in the deal?
That's a good question. In the summer, it's easier because I love golfing. So I'll golf, and I don't feel guilty about it. I just golf. So that's good. Winter's a little...
So taking time for you and don't feel guilty about it.
For that. But in the winter, it's a little more challenging. You try to take care of yourself, eat well, work out, whatever that might be. But it hasn't been a good balance right now. But I think it'll happen. I'm not worried about it. I'm not crying about it, so it's all good.
But you're aware when you think, maybe the balance isn't quite there. And it's one of the things you're then trying to focus on is how to shift that balance.
Yeah, you try to. It's always tough. And that's regardless if you're a business owner or anybody. I think everybody has that challenge in life. If you have a family or if you have a dog, you can't stay at work too long. You got to go walk the dog. So you have to find the balance at some point.
Right. And sometimes the job does, eat some of what you'd like to do to take care of yourself.
It does.
My workout typically at the Y should be some lifting, some stretching, and some cardio. This morning I got some good lifting in, but just a little bit of stretching and no cardio because
there's no time.
Yeah. The clock just ticked off. And
yeah, I think that is the sad part, though. I think, and it maybe not just because I'm a business owner, but I feel like I can make all those plans. But if anything's ever going to take a hit, it's the personal plans that I have. They'll be short. I'll be late to something, or I won't be able to do as much of it as I wanted or whatever because something came up. But just the nature of the beast, I think.
Okay. But you try to balance and make sure you
try to
some time for you.
Try to.
Some people think of leaders as being born, and other people would argue that leadership can be a skill that people acquire. Do you think you were a born leader? From the time you were a babysitter?
I think I was born in the middle. Not literally, I'm a middle child.
Okay.
I think I was literally born in the middle of a non-leader and a leader. I think
Go on.
I never was just always the complete follower. I don't mind that at all, but I like to add value. So I think that, kind of bumps you up from being a non-leader to a certain extent. But when you find a good leader, there's nothing better than to work with them and go along with them in that journey. That's been fantastic as well. So think starting in the middle or being born in the middle has helped me see both sides and grow from that. So I don't know that I'll ever be that born leader.
Okay. But from your perspective, even if I'm hearing this right, maybe not a born leader, but you acquired and learned leadership skills over time by focusing and paying attention.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just understanding people, learning how to work with people. I mean, that's another thing as well.
Okay. So young people out there thinking about leadership, even if they don't feel like they're a natural born leader, still something they could do.
I think I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that it's in everybody to be a leader.
So some people you think just it probably wouldn't be a good fit for them.
Yeah, or nor they may not want to do it. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And back to the leadership pipeline, then you should probably find your bliss someplace else.
That's right.
Okay. Mentors. Have you had some useful mentors in your life?
Oh, I've had so many. I've been very fortunate. So, my parents, my grandparents. Then in college, I did an internship at another university school that I won't mention.
That's fine. I didn't do my undergraduate degree at Oshkosh. It's all right.
Yeah, but he was wonderful. Just kind of let me come in and just take over and threw me challenges that were a little bit beyond my expertise, but I learned from them and I grew from them. So that was wonderful. And then my first job out of college, the same thing. I wasn't micromanaged at all to the point of it was scary for me. I was in charge of these budgets that were more money than I would ever make. And,
but you're a natural numbers person.
Absolutely not. Ask your mom about that one. No, I'm not a numbers person. And it was scary because I was just thrown into this job and he was just like, well, you can figure it out. Well, I can't figure it out. I just graduated college. I don't know how to do this, but you had to. I didn't have a choice. So it was scary, but what a great opportunity to learn. And then, when I moved here, the position I had, the same kind of thing. It's like, these are your projects. You lead them. Come back to me, show me where you're at. But, I expect you to do this and, and you have the responsibility for that. And just having that freedom to do things has been beneficial. And I've been lucky enough that the people that I've worked for have been like that. They have not been micromanagers. They've offered me that flexibility and freedom to learn, make mistakes, grow from that. But it's been great.
You described it as being lucky. It strikes me that often, though, luck and preparation or something kind of work together. How have you had these bosses that kept giving you more, a professor who gave you more and turned you loose? Why do you think that occurred? What did they see in you?
I'd have to ask them. I think it's just because I really push myself to do more than what's expected or more than the average. So whether that's design or production or even the project management or whatever, trying to make sure that I'm doing it better than I did last time or more than what's expected.
So that your high expectations for yourself may have led to others then being comfortable giving you more responsibility and turning you loose.
Yes, I do think that. That can lead to analysis paralysis sometimes for myself because I want them to be to a certain standard. I think you learn that over time too. At some point you have to just say, okay, and then present it. So you always want it to be in this perfect state before you present it. But sometimes you just have to kind of work through that process with whoever you're reporting to or giving the work to as well.
How does that relate in the design world where you're making art?
Yeah.
How do you balance the perfect work of art versus we've got a deadline and budgets, and how do you get the staff to balance those two?
That can be a challenge sometimes. I do think, though, when you know what the deadline is, you just have to. You have to make it happen. You don't have a choice. So you have to get to that end state by whatever time o'clock it is that you have to make sure that that happens. I think what I've learned in the process, though, is that a couple of things. One thing, when I was I went to a 2-year campus and I took a painting class, and I had a professor that really loved to make people cry in a critique. That was his. It It sounds horrible, right? I'm not going for the sympathy thing. In hindsight, it was the most valuable class to take because it really gave you a thick skin. It led you to see that whatever you're doing isn't the best, or it helps you be able to tell your story better to get people to understand why you're trying to do what you do. So I never cried, though. I want to state
Really?
not in his class.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You're kind of proud of that.
I am proud of it because he was tough. But anyway, in design and what I do, you get critiqued all the time. Everything's a personal opinion, and you can see or believe that opinion isn't right, and you think it should be something different. But in what we do, in the end, it's the customer's paying for it. You got to make them happy. So whatever you do to make them happy is the best answer, right? So you have to let go of your own ego sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And just do things that you think will help them to be better, make their products better, whatever that might be.
Cool.
I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, I think
I veered off.
I think, this whole discussion's being veering off. Life is too short not to take those veers. And now, a few words about some of the programs and services offered by the UW-Oshkosh College of Business.
The Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh is focused on solving tomorrow's problems today. Corporations and other businesses in Northeast Wisconsin can utilize the center for threat analysis, incident response assistance, cybersecurity awareness and training programs, and professional development for technical and other staff. Learn more about the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at uwo.sh/cybersecurity. That's uwo.sh/cybersecurity.
You had mentioned earlier that you look at the projects and you do some analysis afterwards. And sometimes you are looking at, okay, this could have been better, etc. Some have argued that you learn the most, not from the things you succeed at, but from the things you struggle with or fail at. Anything in life that you can point to and think about that, that was kind of a struggle for me, but it was a good struggle. I learned something from it. Any struggles, failures in life that were useful to you in the long run?
Yeah, we did a presentation once to a president of a company. It was an epic failure. It was.
It wasn't close, huh?
Not even close. It was so bad. And I felt like just went in and we just weren't prepared.
Okay.
And I think that's something I think it was probably being new in business and you're trying to build your clientele. So you're doing whatever it takes to make that happen. That was one thing to learn. It's like, you just can't go after everything. Not everything's a good fit.
Okay. This isn't a customer we ought to have, etc.
Yeah. But then also really understanding and learning your clientele and what their needs are is a good thing, and be prepared for questions. Or even if you don't know the answer to the questions, it's okay to say you don't know. Just say you'll get back to them. I mean, that's okay. But when you're first starting out, you don't know those things.
Right. You're not comfortable saying, I don't know.
I've blocked out most of that meeting, but there's still parts of it where it was pretty bad.
But it sounds like you got some good takeaways from it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, just to be prepared. Make sure that, it's okay to even to say, we just appreciate your time. Maybe we're not the best fit, but we appreciate your time and it was a pleasure to meet you. That's a good way to end the meeting, right?
Okay. Yeah. So
it could just be that.
I realize we're not going to be doing business together, but it's a positive relationship all the same.
Right.
Best leader you've ever known?
My boss, Cindy, who is a client and a leader right now, has been fantastic because she's just been the one that has truly empowered her team to do better and to grow. And I've worked for her and now worked for her in an organization. And now she's a client and she's just been fantastic. Always respectful, always, pushing and challenging what you need, but just respectful and a good listener, just a really good listener to what the challenges or solutions might be. So she's been fantastic. I would say she's one of the top ones. And she's a woman too, which is nice. It's nice to have a woman leader that, from in my age group, that's not necessarily the norm, having a woman in a leadership position.
Right. And as you describe some of the attributes you see in her, those are attributes you describe as things that you think are important in leadership in general.
Oh, for sure. I've grown emulated from her. I can see that in many instances. So I would say she would be probably one of the top ones.
How do you get the mentors? You're a young person. You're in business. Lots of people give the advice, gee, you should have mentors. Mentors are important. But I often have young people say, well, how do I get a mentor? How do I do that? Any advice on how you crack that nut?
I think any mentors that it's either been through an organization that I've joined or through a business that I've worked with or for.
Okay.
So I think those are just natural places to find it. To go out and find a mentor blindly,
mm-hmm.
I don't know that I have an answer to that.
Okay.
Networking.
But
networking is probably the best.
So when you're in these other organizations outside of your company, what tells you, oh, that person could be a good mentor? And how do you build that relationship?
When you see people in meetings and how they act in meetings, you kind of get a grasp for if it's the style that you like, the style that you feel you work best with. I think that is a great way to start. So getting thrown into a huge project with someone is a great way to meet them and understand them and learn about them. And that's been some of the ways that I've met and still, I have so many work friends that I've met just through project work or whatever that might be. So that's a good way to kind of test for a mentor, to blatantly just kind of blind date a mentor. Yeah. I know they have mentoring platforms that, you can go on. I've not gone through that myself, so I don't know that I can.
Haven't done the blind dating.
No.
But it sounds like you're back to the culture, that you're looking for a cultural fit between you and this other person. If there's cultural fit, then the relationship can grow and blossom from there.
Right. That's a very good point. I know for myself, if any of my mentors had been very strict or too heavy on process and finance, or, really just sticklers for those kinds of things, it's not the best fit for me. They're very important people in any organization. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's just not who I'm attracted to or the best fit for.
Right.
Because
that's not going to be you.
Set. Yeah, it's not.
And it's never going to be you.
Never going to be
no matter what. What do you look for in a leader? So you've got someone, you talked about promotion. Oh, even though you're good at A, might not make sense to move up organizational hierarchy to that next box. What tells you that they would move up well to the next box? That they'd be a good leader in your organization?
I think it's the people that ask for input, accept criticism, if there is any, and are the ones that are just always trying harder. It's something you can just see in people. They're not just okay with it being okay. It's never that. They always want to do more. They want it to be exceptional. So I think those things are important.
So I'm hearing two things: the high expectations, wanting it to be exceptional, and asking for input.
Yes.
So there's an outcome thing and there's a people thing that you're looking for both.
In addition to that, asking for input is one thing, but then also on their point, how they treat other people is very important as well.
Okay.
So if you see them where they just don't treat people the way you think they should, then that's a cause for concern too.
Okay. So again, the treating folks with dignity, respect, kind of things. Have you seen business and business leadership change over the years that you've been at this thing? Is it different now than it used to be? The same? What do you think?
I've been at it for quite a while. I think, yes, it has changed. It used to be more formal. I think it's relaxed tenfold.
Good or bad?
I think in a good way. I think there are some formalities that should never be forsaken, but I think that relaxing for the most part has been good. I think the friendliness has gotten better, where the hard lines between maybe executives and non-executives has softened. So I think that's been good.
Good. Yeah. What are you reading now?
I was listening to a podcast right now.
What podcast do you listen to?
Smart List. If you haven't listened, it's
Smart List. Tell me about Smart List.
So it's
I know I should be talking about competing podcasts, but tell me about Smart List.
It's Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and I forget he played Will on Will and Grace, or he was Will's best friend in Will and Grace. I can't think of his name. Anyway, the three of them bring on other people and interview them. So it's just a lot of fun. So I'm just looking for, at this moment, levity. When I'm doing anything on that's personal, I'm not doing serious business kind of things. I want something that's going to make me laugh.
So that's kind of back to how do you take care of yourself? You allocate that time to being, okay, I'm listening to something that I'm going to enjoy.
Exactly.
This is a time to enjoy something. What's the most difficult part of being a leader?
I think the most difficult thing is that while you try to put yourself in people's shoes that are in your organization, I don't know that ever happens in reverse. So that's where the loneliness comes from. I think, you're trying to be understanding of them on every occasion. It feels like you're taking care of them or making sure everybody's okay. But I don't, in reverse, that's not.
It doesn't feel that much as it's going the other way.
Right.
Is there a nugget there for people in an organization that having your boss feel like you're helping take care of them would be a good thing? Would that help them?
Yeah, maybe. And
feel valued?
I don't know that it's taking care of them. It's just understanding the situation that they're in.
Okay. Being empathetic.
Yeah. So take care of me. That'd be great too. But I know that's not going to happen, but understand the situation that arises in any given instance. It's sometimes not as easy of a decision if you're sitting in my chair versus a different chair.
And having other people understand all the dynamics and all the pressure that you're under and all the factors you have to consider would in some ways make this a little easier.
Right.
Okay. What's the best part of being a leader?
Seeing people thrive, I think, is the best thing for me. I just love to have a project come in and see people just dive in. And sometimes even if it's design related or it could be, copywriting or whatever, what comes back, if it's one of the things I love the most is when it's so different than what I've expected and it's so good. That's the best.
That's an interesting observation. Mm-hmm. So in delegating to folks, you're not necessarily looking for them to produce the piece of art, the design that you would have produced, but they're producing something very different. Right. Can be a good thing.
It can be the best thing. So it's just, I think for us, you look at bringing all the ideas to the table. When you brainstorm, no idea is a bad idea. So right. let's take all of those things and come back with solutions. So you offer 2-3 concepts on any given project, whatever that might be. But to see things come back that are so different or so off course of what you were thinking, but so good. I love that. That's like the best, I think.
Yeah. The look on your face says, that's fun.
Like, dang, this person's awesome. And I'm glad that they're here. So that's great.
Cool. What did I not ask you about leadership? Maybe you thought about what was going to happen today, what have you. Any question I didn't ask or thunks about leadership you want to share?
I mean, when I think about leadership, it's something I don't associate Lisa with leadership. I think I'm a good team member. I think I'm a good person to work with. I try to be a good person to work with.
It's an interesting, a fascinating observation. You own a business, you run the business, and you don't think of yourself as the leader.
Not the boss. I mean, I guess that, seems, to me, it's strange.
That's something different. That's not what you do.
No.
And yet it works.
Part of the team.
How do you think your employees, if you will, would describe you?
Yeah, I don't know that they think the same.
Do they think you're the leader? I assume.
Yeah, I guess. It'd be interesting to ask them, but not have me in the room. I think that would be the best way to do it. Maybe that should be the next podcast.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and it may go back a little bit to you mentioned on the EMBA trip that it didn't feel like you were constantly being told Dale's in charge, but somehow everybody kind of knew that if push came to shove, Dale was the guy.
Right. Well, I think it comes back to respect, right? Like, we knew we were going to have fun. We're going to see all these great things, do all these great things. We're going to have fun. But you said you got to be on the bus at 8:00. You got to be on the bus at 8:00. That's how it goes.
Right. Right. And whether that's leadership or just sharing expectations.
Right.
That's the way it goes.
Right.
All right. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Well,
I appreciate taking your time out of your very busy day, obviously, to come here and to share your words of wisdom on this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. I had fun.
It was fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
It's Time is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs in association with Venture Project Studios. Executive producer, Aaron J. Armstrong. Host, Professor Dale Feinauer. Creative Director, Madison Potratz. Director of Photography, Elazar Kloon. Audio and Video Editor, Elazar Kloon. Marketing Strategy, Tara Larson. Social Media, Anwar Mahana. A special thanks to L Creative, Top View Media, Michael Patton, and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.